Jema,
JJ.
welcome back.
Um,
We're here with Romy on part 2 of our journey shared journey together, where we left off last only 3 weeks ago, but seemingly like a lifetime ago.
so true.
Romy had just taken a big step to go deeper, and had the intuition that there was something more for him in this path. And we went, he moved into the ashram, and then the process took a different flavor, no?
Absolutely.
So what happened for you?
What happened was I was constantly challenged on every decision I make towards my highest self. And
Who was challenging you?
who was challenging me? You could say Ma was challenging me, or a form of Ma.
You mean internally you were challenged?
Yes.
Also externally by me?
Exactly. Exactly. So I felt this constant pressure shaping the highest and best possible form of this divine being. And in every aspect, starting with my behavioral choices, aspects of food, actions I take throughout the day, and this constantly made me uncomfortable, which may feel very off for the ego, but for the highest self it's so nurturing and so needed.
Yeah, it's so when this divine intelligence, this love, is percolating and circulating and embracing you, you come face to face with everything that's not that. You come heart to heart, or heart to mind, with everything that doesn't serve you. The word choices, the food choices, the relationship choices, how you spend your time, what you think about, what you're obsessing on, what you're scared of, what you desire. All of it comes under review. What's attractive to you, what's not attractive to you, how to nurture yourself in the best way possible with this divine guidance all the time, loving you and making it available to you through its guidance. So some people say like Shakti GPS. So this Shakti, this divine intelligence, Kali, love, is constantly informing and nurturing your angel nature. And for the ego, for the personality complex, it's quite confronting, because before you might be largely unaware of the choices you're making, of your behaviors, of your desires, your subconscious desires and overt desires, of your beliefs, of the events in your life, your memories even, how they've shaped you. And when this divine intelligence, the Shakti, the Kundalini, is fully active in Sushumna, what happens is that it purifies everything, and that purification is like a defrag program in the background. But it's also in the foreground in this term of, I call dredging the lake. So all the subconscious conditioning and programming, it percolates to the surface as Shakti dredges the lake, and then it comes up for review. So it's not that we have to do some kind of process when it comes up. There's already a process going on. It's already seeking to relieve us of it. But when we focus on what's coming up as a story, or as a problem, or as something to focus on, actually we prolong it. Whereas if we put our heart awareness, or shining the light of awareness on what's happening, then these conditions start to dissolve. Is that something like your experience?
That's exactly what I experienced. So the light of awareness was brought to the physical aspects, the mental aspects, and all of these things come up throughout this process. And
What was coming up at a physical level?
physical level, all these pain points in the body. So light of awareness was brought to the areas that have not been nurtured in the best way possible throughout my life journey. So for example, my stomach area, my intestines.
And all the associated emotions
Exactly.
with the intestines.
With the intestines, yeah. So throughout my life, I used to be very like slow, a little sluggish, different personality complexes that used to be present, and in a physical manifestation, mucus was the physical manifestation of it, where I used to smoke a lot. I used to eat a lot of pastries, so both in my lungs and intestines there were problems, to say.
So basically you were in the past using food as either fuel for sports, which was also very like carby and pasta,
Correct.
or either to numb yourself. And these foods are very like slowing down, mucus forming, numbing.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so when the divine intelligence became more active, you came hard to stomach with the real situation, not the it's fine, I'm good, I'm young, I'm healthy, but like the reality of you've made poor choices for a decade or more, and the karma of those choices
Exactly.
is you're still carrying. And now what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. In my mind, I would think that I was a vegan 20-year-old. I have a perfect body and there's no problems and so on. But yeah, I was put face to face with the problems inside this divine vessel. And not only in the lungs, in the stomach, that would be nice and easy, but shoulder, knees, kidney. So
That's a good story.
there's quite a bit.
So you can imagine that we think we're aware, but actually even inside our own bodies where our awareness should be the most, like it's the most close to home, the most close to our center, our point of awareness, we can say. But we're so unaware of what's going on in our bodies. And we just believe like, oh, I'm healthy. Everyone believes they're healthy almost, unless you're really sick. So we're oblivious to the real condition of something so close to us, or that's part of us. You know, there are paths that say like, I am not the body, but it's not true. We are all everything, including the body. And the body, we can say, is definitely a strong point of awareness in this all for our viewpoint. And by bypassing, ignoring, suppressing the body, how can we hope to expand our awareness past the body?
So true. It's that is the truth. And for the ego, you could say, it wants to bypass. It wants to be comfortable. That's why it's like seeking the easy ways and
feeding the ego, and literally the overeating, the poor food choices, the poor friend choices, the poor relationship choices. All these choices we make are mostly done from this perspective of the ego needs to be seen, justified, coddled, enhanced, non-threatened. And so we're constantly gravitating towards situations of comfort. But of course, the the construct we live in, and the powers that be know that and constantly seek to make us more and more comfortable. And this desire for comfort is dumbing down and killing the whole species.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it, but it's the fact is that, yeah, you know, it's comfort food, yeah, sure, but when that's your whole life is comfort food, what are you doing, and who's benefiting from that? It's not you and your health. It's the food industries and the hospital industry and the medical industry and even the holistic health industry. I mean, they're all benefiting from this desire for comfort. And it's really something we have to look at in ourselves and say, who wants to be comfortable? What is comfort? What actually feels the best? Like, is it when I feed my ego and its desires, does that make me feel good? Or when I feed the Shakti, how does that make me feel?
That's where the true joy is hidden, where the true passion, where we're like, that's what we really desire deep inside the heart. And
that's what we are deep inside our heart.
Exactly.
So the joy you experience now with Kundalini, with Kali, with your awakening, the joy you experience in meditation, is that like the same joy you experience when you're ego and like you score a goal in soccer or football, or you have a great night out, or is it something different?
It's completely different. It's it's a temporary joy that you're seeking, not the true joy that we are, and that's the main and huge difference.
The difference between like a hit of joy and knowing you are joyful. Exactly. And like your baseline nature is joyful.
Yeah.
People look at you and say he's joyful, rather than temporary, like, oh, I had joy because some perceived success.
Yes, and in a physical manifestation, how we become lighter and more aware, we just constantly can radiate this joy, become the light, become this joy, rather than seeking the joy externally from other sources, and which like fulfill our needs just for a moment, not being the constant frequency of joy. And that is that's where the awareness is missing in the collective consciousness, I would say. And we're called to bring the light of awareness to.
When you started bringing the light of awareness more to your physical health, what started unfolding?
What started unfolding was, as I mentioned before, the awareness of having lots of mucus inside my body. Though you could say I've been doing...
How were you aware that there was lots of mucus in your body? Like, you started a cleansing process, yes? So Romy and I, through my own experience with something similar over many years, I can share the field that encourages this detoxification. So I just make myself available for that, and the Divine Intelligence shares that. So people who come for meditation, people who come to the ashram also undergo a detox at every level: emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, all levels. And the physical detox, we can assist by different methods, and whether it's fasting, whether it's enemas, whether it's the meditations, whether it's juicing, whether it's certain weird food alchemy. The intelligence drives the choices of how best to detoxify, rejuvenate, and make the body a fitting temple for the Divine Intelligence. But that's a very intense process, yeah?
Quite intense. So the physical is tied to the mental, they're not separate. So as you're constantly, let's say, pressured, then these emotions build up in the physical manifestation inside the body as well. So we had one morning with Tim where we were working on some of the ashram building things, and we weren't on the same wavelength, you could say, and the pressure was built up inside my chest area, and I had you could say a large release of mucus from the lungs from the past days of suppressing all this sadness here, and that brought the light of awareness here, releasing all the mucus by crying from the nose, and not only inside the lungs but in the intestines as well. So I felt the energy of the mucus, the slow me, sluggish, like not striving for excellence. And
Also the ego feeling picked on, or not understood, or judged, or something unfair going on to you. Yeah.
yeah, that's the way it felt.
Yeah.
And so throughout the process, mucus started releasing, and by some beautiful gifts from the divine intelligence Ma brought us a beautiful colon cleanse as well, which helped me release kilos of mucus from my intestines, which was life-changing experience, honestly.
So that's something else that's interesting is the experience here is that this process has been present for me for let's say a decade at least, and yet in the last year, but particularly in the last 6 months, this whole process seems to be accelerating greatly, and the guidance was that this is a quickening. So it feels like that, like every week is like quantum leap over the prior weeks, and it just keeps happening again and again and again. Does that feel like to you?
Not weeks, but days. Like I'm keeping a journal and just listing down the miracles or the magic that took place during the day, and I could list 10 different things that
Per day.
that is like pure magic that happened, that things that came up and healed in hours, or the emotions that were gone through. So it's like constantly just raising the vibration and purifying the body. It's miraculous. That's the magical. It's true and pure blessing from Ma.
And how about the meditations? What's present for you in the meditations since we last shared?
The meditations have been reflecting the eternal process. I've been experiencing very strong kriyas.
So how do you what's a kriya? How do you experience kriya?
Kriya is a spontaneous movement or purification of the body. It could be chanting, it could be, I'd say you could give maybe a more specific explanation to kriya, but for me, it's once again purification of the body through different manifestations of the Kundalini, and Kundalini bringing the awareness to certain points of the body.
So during meditation, kriyas, just to be clear, it's not a kriya that's willful, like you're doing a kriya, like kriya yoga. In Shaktipat, the kriyas happen spontaneously. So during meditation, we empty ourselves and we remain neutral. We can say like loving observer rather than any doer or doership. And then the divine intelligence, the love, Ma, descends or manifests, or whatever you want to say, into the circle and expresses herself through Kriya. So these spontaneous movements, which can be mudras, chanting, asana, all the things we kind of associate with yoga, but instead of a mantra you read somewhere and now you're reciting from your mind, it's a mantra that comes up, wells up, as if triggered by Shakti from within, and then comes out. So one day you're singing Om Namah Shivaya, and the next day it's Hari Om, and the next day it's Hari Om Tat Sat, and then the next day it's Bhakta Om Shakti Ma, Hail Mary, full of grace. And what's going to happen and what's coming out of your mouth at any given moment, it's Ma's business, not ours. So that's Kriya, and by allowing, you appear to have a choice in this matter, whether you would allow the Kriya to fully express itself, or try to alter it, suppress it, or just walk away from it. And every time we relax more and more into the Kriya, more and more purification, more and more light manifests in the body.
Exactly. And the kriyas can be very wild, very funny. So there have
Non-stop entertainment.
Yes, correct. I love to say it's the best reality show in front of our eye.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's you never know what manifests in front of us, and it's super exciting. And
every meditation is different. Sometimes we're all on the floor, like we've been heavily sedated, and other times we're hula hooping. Just however the Shakti wants to express herself through these forms.
Yes.
And every expression brings you closer and closer to your own divinity.
Absolutely. And yeah.
So we talked in the last meditation, you were sharing your experience with Shiva, but in the last 3 weeks it seems that Kali is more
Correct.
present for you.
So as I have been purifying the body, fasting for weeks, becoming into lighter states, then you could say that experiences become lighter as well. So Kali's presence has been with me quite a bit, and I have been experiencing Kali Baba and presence of Kali inside this divine vessel, and that has been feeling extraordinary, blissful, super light. Feeling as a woman in a man's body, which is it's even tricky to find this a beautiful world. It's so magical to experience this. And during one meditation, I was fully as Kali, one with Kali inside my body, having a realization of Ma as everything is Ma, everything is one. And that knowing, that realization showed the true reality, the truth, I would say. And living and having this knowledge, knowing.
The inner knowing, not the intellectual knowledge, yeah, the experiential knowing.
Yes.
The wisdom.
The wisdom.
Yeah.
Is
Game changer.
It's a game changer. Brings
The ultimate biohack.
the ultimate biohack, brings complete and full gratitude to the heart, and humbles me as a being to the divine, to Ma, and calls me more into service to Ma and to humanity. And yeah.
What does that mean for you, that you would like to share this experience with others?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. That's what I've been called to, is to help others realize themselves as love, to help others go through this process of detoxification on different levels, of the process of Kundalini awakening.
Process of yoga.
Yes, process of true yoga. what it is, a practice of surrender that we're doing here. Cultivating. And yeah, and I am really grateful and happy to have Tim beside me to guide and help me throughout this process and learn from him throughout every step, throughout every moment, even communicating our word choices, and yeah, coming to a point where I could independently come upon with a person and guide them, help them, nurture them, love them when it's being called for.
And how has the process affected your existing relationships?
The process has affected in a way that it's just you and me.
So it's funny. So to most people that might seem like a nightmare, but
It's a blessing.
it's a blessing, yeah, because when you find someone, a being, can be a place too. Ramana Rishi found Arunachala, a mountain, where you find a place where the Shakti is super strong and where it aligns you into your divine center. You should stay there and get as close to it as possible and merge with it if possible. So at some level, Romi's intuition, we could even say the Shakti, likes the Shakti and feels alignment with this expression of Shakti. So it seeks to merge with it. And that's what's happening in our relationship. We're having merging closer and closer. So we're having the same Shakti outlook, we can say. And it's a big blessing for both of us, because also for me, when I go into a slightly more contracted state where I might feel confused or I need reassurance or just an outside pair of eyes to make sure I'm not playing some kind of ego game with myself, I can really trust Romi's Shakti eyes to tell me the truth, what he feels and what he feels at the moment. So as a self-generating, loving feedback mechanism with each other, and also with the other people we meditate with, it's such a blessing, because it's not someone evaluating you or judging you or projecting their subconscious distortions on you and on the situations. You recognize from the quality of feedback given that it's the same divine intelligence that courses through you as coursing through them. So your Ma self is talking to your Ma self. So when my Ma self's a little like flickering, there's another Ma self nearby to say like, what's with that color? You know, or what were you thinking here? And it's the biggest blessing in the world, because this way we're cultivating more and more love within one another, outside one another, into the field that we're engaged with each other, and when other people coming into the field. It's really the expansion of love.
Yeah, really amplifying. And yeah, as you mentioned, like, as this process can be very intense for the ego, having to support someone with that kind of experience or someone who has been on the journey for a long time, it's it's really good to have someone next to you who has a second pair of eyes, not only being by yourself. It's a very different quality. But coming back to the past relationships and why I would say, yeah, they have been dissolving or fading away a little with the friends who used to be present, is as internally we are going more into the depths and exploring more and more, then for the others it can seem very extreme and very uncomfortable. So I would love to meet others in the same depth and dive deep inside the roots of this knowledge and deep inside Ma, deep inside love. But often the ego is trying to hold you back and hold others back. So the ones who do not have the will or courage to dive into the depths just fade away or dissolve, and that's the way it is. Everyone.
Yeah, we can also say that this transformation is so radical and so fast that it's hard for the existing relationships to parallel the transformation. Most people will not transform at that extreme radical pace, and therefore your transformation will seem very threatening to them, to their egos, or just they'll be numb to it, or they might see it and encourage it, but they don't want that for themselves. And then when you relate with people, the ability to relate at, let's say, a more egoic level starts dropping. Like you can no longer do that in your own being, in your own thoughts, in your own, let's say, immediate reality. So when you are in your social world or family world or with others, you feel everything just as intently as you feel it when it's your own ego. You feel the other's egos. And it's not to condemn them or judge them. We're all there at one level or another, dealing with the same dynamic. But it's just the choice you make. So the choice you make is to always cultivate the highest vibration possible, to feed the angels and not the ego. So that also is reflected in the choice of our relationships, how we conduct those relationships and whether we would like to continue the relationships. And that's not just with others, but it's also with places and food and many other things. Always cultivating the Shakti is a simplicity, a beauty, a spontaneity, an intuition, a softness. And when we're in places, things, patterns, food that don't reflect this Shakti, then Shakti pretty much lets us know this is no longer good for you. And you can persist a little, but it will start to feel pressure, uncomfortable.
Exactly. That's the way it is. And yeah, you said it really well. That the feedback is so immediate, either in your on physical manifestation or the feeling inside that what's not nurturing the highest being, the Shakti, then the feedback is there. You're not feeling well, something on inside your body shows that. So that's
So we're constantly in this field of given the choice whether to follow the Shakti's guidance or something else. And the Shakti shows us in the beginning when we make the choice, like there's a choice is do X or Y, and X has a lighter, more intuitive feeling, but Y is what I want, and we're given the choice, and so through millions of these choices, we refine our response to the Shakti GPS. So eventually we merge with the Shakti GPS, so that there's no decision, it's just the flow. But while the ego is still present and we could say dominant, we have to make choices. And the beauty, the magic, the miracle of this path is that divine intelligence is always present. We don't even have to tune in. It's tuned in. It's there. It's in your intuition. It's in your field. And we can choose to ignore that or not. And when we choose to ignore it, the feedback is just instantaneous. So you don't have to wait years before discovering that no, it's hours or minutes. And it's beautiful because that's the journey. It's oh, I thought that was my intuition, but actually it turns out it was subconscious programming. And how do I know that? Because when I followed that choice, I felt super contracted. And now I realize that was it made me reflect, and now I realize that was a subconscious program. And now, faced with a similar situation and dynamic, I might choose differently next time.
Yes, the way it is, and it requires us to be constantly aware of our
present all the time.
Presence, yeah. Once we lose the presence, we lose the Shakti GPS, and maybe for the viewers to like maybe clarify the Shakti GPS, or what's the quality of this like divine intuition that flows through? And yeah, it's different from the mind, as the mind's looking for more like
Analysis.
logical,
Linear.
but this is a fully quantum field, so the linearity or doesn't apply to this at all.
So you can see like one of the tells, like in poker they have tell signs, and one of the tells of the Shakti GPS is the non-linearity, the spontaneity, and the intuitive light nature of the choice. So even something that your ego might have resistance towards, like healing a relationship, you don't want to make the first step because your ego doesn't want to say, you're too proud to make the first step. But then the Shakti GPS says, call this person. And you think, I don't want to. But just that shows you it's the Shakti GPS, because you see that your ego doesn't want to do that. But so who's telling you to heal this relationship? It's obviously, it has that lighter quality. It's seeking to make you whole. It's seeking to reduce tension within and without. So then you realize, like, it takes you, me, 2 seconds before I'm picking up the phone and doing what the guidance is. And I'm laughing at my own resistance to not wanting to do that. And that's how I can really choose, bizarre food choices that I know I'm not making. Or we say we're fasting and then we eat something that perceives really dense, even though we've decided to fast. And eating this dense food sends us into a huge expanded state of consciousness. Whereas if we make a food choice that's more from taste only, then we don't feel so good.
Yes.
And it teaches you every step of the way. We're like little baby Shivas being trained by Shakti how to be in our full Shivahood.
Exactly. So we could say behind this resistance, uncomfort, fear, there's always expansion waiting, and looking to expand, to step into higher frequencies, constantly raising the vibration is what Shakti is calling us to do.
So I wanted to just say a couple of words about that. Is so my favorite bit of Shakti philosophy is both, neither, and beyond. So that gets you out of linearity. So it's not dual, non-dual. That's duality. It's just isness, or that, or this. It's not dual, non-dual, or good, evil, or good, bad. It's all duality. But duality, non-duality is also dual, So it is both dual and non-dual, and neither and beyond. So that's the way you have to approach everything, is you don't get caught into a construct that's limiting and a new belief system that's contracting and prevents you from being in the divine flow.
Yes, so not attaching to any conditions, beliefs, like constantly keeping an open mind, open field, where we're open to receive any new information, any guidance.
Be able to switch on a dime, like, I thought we were doing this, like, nope, we're doing that. Like you're in a Shakti red Ferrari, like not a big 18-wheeler, but you're able to change on a dime. And there's a joy in that, actually. It's that linear mind, but like you said yesterday, blah, blah, blah. And that was then.
Yeah, exactly. Another great example, we're water fasting for a couple of days, and guidance is coming through that have fish and sake. The most unrational, unlinear thing to do, but as we follow the guidance, the benefits, the joy, the bliss that is behind there is just amazing.
So it's interesting at 2 levels. One is just by following that guidance increases the bliss. Don't forget about fish and sake, the substances, but it's actually attuning to like the non-linearity, the flow, the joy, just responding to the guidance produces its own joy and bliss. And then when you follow that guidance, the actual substances also. So, I was a raw foodist for a long time. I was a fruitarian. I lived on liquids for many, many months. And still I'm living predominantly on liquids. but all my conditioning around good and bad substances dissipated. So I realized that I could go into expanded states of consciousness no matter what the Ma in here guided me to eat or consume. So I could have something that raw foodists would consider poison, or even certain aspects of Hinduism would say, you know, this is the worst thing to eat for meditation. And I would go into samadhi right away while eating it. You know, drinking sake samadhi. So,
and yet have very strong meditation, even more expansive.
Meditating with the sake.
Yes.
So, you know, it breaks all your conditioning around, you know, I didn't touch alcohol for a decade and was detoxing from all that, and poison, the way society casually uses alcohol for numbing, for empowering subconscious, latent, dark desires, escaping, and then coming back after a decade, having this guidance to have sake, and going into states of expanded consciousness. Like, it's delicious, it's wonderful. Actually, looking at it a little, they serve it in Shinto Japanese temples in Kyoto. They make it there. So there must be some magic there to like serve it in a temple and make it in a temple. It's only my conditioning around food and alcohol and substances that said this bad, avoid. And it was bad for a while for me, but the absoluteness, like I'm never touching that, no way, no way. Ma led me to that place and said, hey, you know, check this out and see how you feel. Drop your resistance to that. And again, it's not about the sake, as delicious as it is. It's about your conditioning and constantly coming face to face with your conditioning and realizing it was just conditioning. It wasn't anything more than that. And it's most like visceral with food, but it's just true everywhere.
Yeah, on a behavioral level,
relationship level,
constantly testing your center and looking the ways to expand being. Yeah, it's so beautiful and so amazing to experience this magical journey.
Om Jai Ma Dhamma Bhakta Om Shakti Ma. One being, one light I am. Om Jai Jai Ma Dhamma Kali Om. We are all love. Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om Shakti. Dhamma Kali. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us, and we'll have more in the future. Jai Ma.
Kali Jai.
Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Om Shakti.